What's up, everybody? Joshua Yale here with Eric Goldman. Eric has seen the pilot to Lucifer. Depending on when you're watching this, you're either, it's either about to come on or it will have already passed.
Or it's available, I'm sure, online somewhere for you to watch.
Yes, there it is. So I want to get your impressions on Lucifer. And it's based off a comic book, a Vertigo comic book, which is owned by DC. Although it doesn't really cross over with the DC heroes too much, maybe here and there. And from my experience of reading the comic book, it's very much like Lucifer. Like, he no longer runs hell; he's living on Earth, and he kind of has these encounters with these grand, supernatural figures. And it's a very philosophically driven series where he sees God as a tyrant who has preordained everything that's ever going to happen,
right.
and he feels like he needs to be an agent of free will and to kind of prove God wrong. So is that what the show is like?
Not really. Because what you said, the setup is similar in that it has the same setup. It has the same, he's abandoned hell, he moves to Los Angeles, and he opens a bar called Lux. Those are all the same, but with the huge deviation is that the actual sort of engine of the show is that he meets this female cop. His powers don't work on her, he can usually persuade anyone to do anything. Don't work on her, but the main thing is that he teams up with her and is going to help her solve different crimes each week. And that is really what the weekly plot is coming from, not what you were talking about. They touch upon his issues with God, which is his dad and all this stuff, but that's not really what the show is about.
Do you think all that other stuff, the main comic book plot, will be sort of peppered in the background, so for people who do watch the whole thing, they'll get a bigger idea of it?
I do think so, in that it's there, right? In the pilot, we do meet his brother, who's basically saying, another angel, you have to come back, to hell, and you just abandon it. And I know that character will kind of be popping up through the season, and I'm guessing in the season finale there'll be a big return to that. But it's really a procedural. It really is him solving crimes, using his abilities, his wit. He's Lucifer, he can say anything, more than being about all those themes that the comic was about on all the time.
So, this isn't the first time this has happened with an adaptation, or just I guess sort of a genre thing. Can you give us some other examples of that?
Well, it was actually brought to my attention recently. I just did the TCA, Television Critics Association press tour, where it was kind of pointed out that Fox is in a funny place with all the supernatural and sort of sci-fi shows. And again, Fox gets a lot of knocks, you do all these sci-fi fantasy shows and then you cancel them. Again, I will give them credit for trying these shows more than a lot of other networks. But it seems if you look in the recent years, you got Sleepy Hollow, Ichabod Crane comes back from the dead, he's immortal basically. He teams up with the cop and they solve crimes. Granted, some supernatural stuff there, but then they had Minority Report really recently. They're psychics, they can see the future, teams with the cop, solve crimes. They had Almost Human, they can build lifelike robots, teams with the cop, solves crimes.
Okay.
So it seems like they have a thing, right, where amazing conceptual genre character, but then what can we do to have them solve crimes every week?
Is that are they all these concepts, or are they the victim of TV in general? Because serialization is so hard to get people to come back every week and not know, because they're afraid of missing a piece of it, and they quit watching, right?
Yeah, we're in a weird era, because on one hand, we're getting more serialized shows than ever, and the rise of a lot of the cable channels and Netflix have people embracing the idea of we're gonna really get intricate and week to week, or you're gonna watch them all in one sitting, tell a big story. But on network TV, on the main networks, there still is that hope to have the procedurals, the shows that are for more casual viewers. You can come and go. Intermix. Even on Fox, a show like Empire is pretty serialized. It's a soap opera, basically. But they still want those other shows that are more just the Case of the Week show. So I think this show it's weird timing for Lucifer, because you can imagine the cable version that would be way, the AMC version or FX version that's way closer to the comic. But yeah, it just seems like Fox wanted much more of a sort of standard type story.
Well, this is the first Neil Gaiman character to ever make it to TV, right?
Yeah.
That I know of. That almost seems unfortunate. That it's he's one of his things written by Mike Carey, the main series, Lucifer series.
Yeah.
But for that to finally make it to TV and this is kind of what happens to it. But you've seen the pilot. How are the performances? Is it good?
Yeah, the performances are good. Actually, I will say Tom Ellis, who plays Lucifer, is very charming and definitely has what you want as far as that a guy who can lure you in and that there's something ominous there, but the show's not really going to play into that. I mean, already in the comic book, he had a code, but he was also he was at Lucifer. He was amoral. He didn't really care. Even though he had a code, he also could be very dismissive of people. You already can tell, and even talking to the cast and whatnot, they're going to way more delve into a redemption storyline very quickly, probably more quickly than they should. He's good. The other cast members are good. Lauren German, who is always mistake if I'm saying German or German, but German I'm going to say. She's good too, has the copies paired with, even though it's sort of a silly role. It's like this whole weird thing where she was a teen star who was like naked in a movie, and she's like kind of famous, but she's trying to be a serious cop. And it all seems a little too cutesy. So even though the acting is good, and I could see the version of Lucifer that I was talking about on cable and have Tom Ellis, and it would work, it just seems like it's in service. Like they took, like you said, Neil Gaiman, one of the best comic book writers ever, and they took one of his characters and just kind of like twisted it into something that feels much more generic.
So is it kind of like funny? Like, what's the tone of this pilot?
It's mostly comical, even though there are little turns. They definitely they want to show his darkness too. So he's very witty, which should be. In the comics, he's also witty, but it's probably more witty ongoing than the comics were, with little touches of the fact that he can like suddenly turn threatening, even though you kind of feel like they're already setting up like his redemption and can he be a better devil? You know? It seems to be sort of set up pretty quickly early on.
Interesting. So overall, like how do you feel? Do you recommend this? Are you excited to see where they go with it, or are you more just kind of like tentative?
It's hard to be excited to see where they go with it because I do feel, and I'm not like a purist on everything, like they can't change anything, but it just seems the entire sort of, setup of the way they took this character and then transplanted him in to this other thing, this like cop show thing, just doesn't really sit right with me. So it's not a terrible show, but it's also not an exciting show. And it just seems like there's so much more they could do with it. And in a day and age where we're getting so many really cool TV shows and some great comic book adaptations, it just seems like this one's kind of a missed opportunity.
I had I was really happy when Constantine came on. It was so like, this is it. Like, this is so loyal and so great. Even though it didn't work out, I was really happy about it. But this does not sound like something I'll be like super excited about. So that's too bad to hear. But we'll keep watching. We'll give it a chance. Let us know your thoughts once you've seen Lucifer. And for all things Lucifer, Vertigo, DC Comics, whatever, keep it here on IGN.